Mr. Gerald is a Group ESG officer at NMBZ Holdings, where he leads the integration of environmental, social, and governance ESG principles across the group's banking, property management, and export subsidiary. He's responsible for developing ESG strategies, climate risk framework, and sustainability reporting that aligns to global standards while supporting responsible investment and sustainability finance initiatives. He has over 9 years experience, and his experience cascades down to not just MBZ Holdings. He has done something at Stewart's Bank, now TN Cyberbank Tech Bank, Premier Medical Services Investments, Mashonaland Tobacco Company, Edis Construction, Mimosa Mining Company, and where he has built a strong expertise in environmental and social risk management, health and safety, and sustainability implementation. Gerald holds a master's in science, a master's of science in safety, health, and environmental management from Midland State University, and a bachelor's degree honors in geography. You can see he has background in environmental studies. He has further strengthened his expertise through certifications, especially in ESG and sustainability finance, as well as environmental and social risk analysis. He is passionate about advancing ESG as a catalyst for investment, resilience, sustainable economic growth in Zimbabwe and across emerging markets. And like Mr. Chinedu said, sustainability is the main thing now. Organizations don't report their normal annual profits. They rate organizations based on the impact they have made in the environment. So, Mr. Gerald, the floor is open for you to educate us and train us on how we can be sustainability enthusiasts like you, and also the things we should be looking out for as we are carrying out our facilities management profession. Thank you, Mr. Gerald. The floor is yours.
Right, thank you, Obi, for that introduction. Before I proceed, can you confirm if you can hear me clearly?
We can hear you very clearly, Mr. Gerald.
Great, thank you. So what I'm just gonna do, I'm just going to open my camera briefly so that all you can see me and also note that I'm an Arsenal fan who are cruising nicely. I hope you can all see me. I'm going to switch off my camera so that I won't interrupt my network, and allow me to share my presentation. Please confirm if you can see my screen before I proceed.
We can see it, Gerald.
Perfect.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Great. I will try not to take much of your time. As you have seen, we've lost some of our time, but at the same time, I will also try to make sure that I will not leave anything that is critical or important. I will try to be brief and also try to cover every aspect. So in terms of the background, I'm sure you guys have gone through my profile, so there's no need for me to do it again. But in terms of our overview, in terms of our agenda, this is how we are going to do this presentation. I'm just going to give a brief literature review in terms of ESG. Then I'm going to touch on facility management overview. Then further to that, I'm going to give a strategies for implementing ESG into facility management in terms of how we then integrate and make sure that we combine both two and come out with positive results. Then in terms of presentation, again, I'm also going to look at the drivers for integration of ESG into facility management. Then last but not least, I also look at the benefits associated with integrating ESG into facility management. So in terms of this presentation, if you've got any question that you think you will forget, please just type in the chat box. Then at the end of the presentation, we'll definitely go through them together. So before I start, I just want to pose a question to everybody who's on this call in terms of facility management, in terms of ESG. The question goes like this: what is the real risk in facility management today? Is it cost, or is it failing to adapt to environmental, social, and governance? What is the real risk in facility management today? Is it cost or is it failing to adapt to ESG? We'll look at the question again at the end of the presentation. You cannot answer now, but just keep it in thought as we'll be doing this presentation. Thank you. So in terms of what you're likely going to get from this presentation is an understanding of what is ESG and principles of ESG. Then you also highlight the role of sustainable building operation in addressing climate risk changes and also maybe helping us in governance and standard compliance. Then you also do a case study and provide practical strategies in terms of how you can then integrate ESG into the facility management. Thank you. Then in terms of the current trends and challenges, you will notice that globally, there are sustainability pressures because of, number one, because of the regulatory mandates or the regulatory landscape. Most governments worldwide are tightening building efficiency, carbon reduction requirements, and net zero targets are becoming expectation. They're becoming a requirement. A very simple example, it's what has happened lately in Zimbabwe. For example, you will notice that in Zimbabwe, like last week, there was a legal legislation that was gazetted, which is no longer allowing urban dwellers to drill a bore. So already because of that phenomena, you can tell where we are going. Things are going to be tightened up. Things are going to get scarier. Things are get mess. So imagine if you have a building and you are the facility manager and you just finished constructing it. The next thing is you want to put a ball for the tenants. And the next thing that we hear is the government saying that you are no longer allowed to drill a ball. You can imagine how that is going to cost you, and you can imagine how that is going to be a difficult situation for you to operate at that facility. So these are some of the things that are currently happening in terms of regulatory landscape. Things are getting tighter, things are getting worse, things are getting to a stage whereby we have to be fast adopters of environmental and sustainable governance principles and make sure that you adapt as quick as you can before you get left out. Not only that, you will also notice that in terms of investors or in terms of stakeholders, they are also coming up with their certain legal requirements or coming up with their own standard, which allows people to conform to ESG standards. They are showing how ESG has become a mainstream in business metrics. Right now, there's issue to do with climate risk. For example, rising energy cost of climate-related risk. For example, heat waves, flooding, which push organizations to adopt resilient and sustainable building options or operations, meaning to say that you cannot remain to be left out. You cannot remain to turn a blind eye to ESG issues, knowing very well that things are happening, legislation are being put in place, the legal frameworks are being put in place, and everybody's moving towards that. So for one to become an efficient and effective facility manager or facility manager practitioner, you have to make sure that as you be implementing your strategies, make sure that you also put a strategy involved or that supports the ESG framework or the sustainability framework. You find that not only that, if you look at the workforce expectation or the customer or the clients, they are now very aware of these requirements. So you find that most of the employees, they increasingly expect a workplace that prioritizes ESG issues, for example, the well-being, the inclusivity, and sustainability of the building operation themselves. Not only that, if you further look into global and current trends, you notice that current trends, especially in facility management, some people have begun to be early adopters and they've went a step ahead, trying to implement some of these things that can help, especially in terms of facility management. For example, AI and predictive maintenance. This can actually help as you be managing a facility. There are systems that are there that can actually help to detect equipment failures before it breaks down, reduce unplanned downtime, especially by 45%, and cutting and maintaining cost, which is a positive side of implementing ESG principles. Right now, there's what we call smart buildings, IoT integration, right? They are built in a way that they are advanced. They've got sensors. For example, if you go into the restrooms, they use what we call smart taps, smart lighting, which are there to minimize cost associated with building operation. And this applies to the facility manager because overall, what we are saying is that you will then tend to reduce your cost. For example, your operating cost, your rentals, your utility bills, your water bills, thereby also at the same time increasing efficiency of your building. So what then tend to happen is that by doing so, you get more clients. Not only that, you also get more recommendation, which is a positive sign in terms of facility management. Right now, there's also what we call hybrid workplace optimization. This whereby space utilization is under scrutiny. Every square meter must be justified with data, both demand evidence before approving budgets. So you find that before you even put a budget, before you even submit maybe your request to the board or to the management or to the finance department, the moment you then take into cognizance of the ESG requirements, you are going a step ahead to see the cost that you can actually reduce by implementing sustainable, efficient mechanism in place. There's also what you call sustainability dashboards, which can be used. These are real-time dashboards which can help you to monitor your energy, to monitor your water usage, thereby coming up with strategies to reduce excess or to reduce some of the resources that you're currently using. Then you can also do what we call resilience planning, which is a continued strategy that are prioritized to handle disruption from pandemics, from climate is situation whereby it's, for example, heat wave, you've got your floods, you've got your droughts, etc. So by mapping up your landscape, you can therefore foretell what is going to likely happen in future. Then this will definitely help you in terms of what you're supposed to do or to implement next, right? Then moving on with my slide. My apologies. I think my slide is. Let me try to reshare. Right. So in terms of the key drivers of ESG, a lot of things are happening. So in terms of overview, the key drivers of ESG integration into facility management, you've got what you call regulation landscape, which actually demands us to comply. Failure to comply will be caught on the wrong side, whereby you'll be paying penalties, you'll be non-compliant, and which will attract unnecessary attention to your organization. Then the other key drivers is the cost. If you fail to integrate ESG into your facility management operation, you will tend to pay more than what you can actually pay. You tend to pay more utility bills, to pay more of water usage, to pay more on waste disposal or management, to pay more on worker satisfaction. So by implementing ESG framework, implementing ESG standard, it will help you to minimize this cost that comes with implementation. Then there's also what you call custom or stakeholder requirements. Most of the customers, for example, most of the customers, when they enter into a building, the next thing they look into, if it is what they need to ask, is then air conditioner in place, if there fan in place. Why? It's simply because they are looking for a facility that is comfortable, that allows them to be occupant without facing harsh conditions. So by implementing some of these requirements, you tend to create a conducive environment for your clients, for your tenants, for every occupant in your building. Then there's also what you call climate risk, which is another driving factor. For example, uh, climate change has caused a change in shift in pattern. Most of the areas are now receiving more high temperatures. So the only way you can adapt is to mitigate through what you call a sustainable building or a sustainable offering, whereby you can come up with a strategy to implement a building that take into cognizance of the temperature around. So if it is comfortable, you tend to have more clients, tend to have more occupants in that building. Then technology again is changing. Then another reason again for driving ESG integration into facility management is to getting a competitive advantage. You find that most buildings that are comfortable, they have got more clients, or they are attractive to the clients who are looking for rent, or they're attractive even to the workers. So by implementing these strategies, you have a better place whereby you can actually have more people. So in terms of my introduction, ESG in facility management means applying environmental, social, and governance principles to how buildings are operated. And it matters because directly it impacts in terms of sustainability, it impacts in terms of your cost, it impacts in terms of employee well-being and corporate reputation. Facility managers are now central to achieving ESG goals by implementing carbon footprints, by fostering inclusive workplaces, and also ensuring that is transparent in governance. So you find out under environment, there are some issues that a facility manager should look into and make sure that all those standards or policies and frameworks under environmental pillar are incorporated in facility management. What do you mean by E in the environmental management? We're looking at things such as your energy use. We're looking at things such as your carbon emission. We're looking at your how you manage your waste. Examples include switching to LED lighting, installing solar panels, and also implementing recycling programs. So a deep dive into the E, right? So you find out in terms of your environmental management, there's what we call energy efficient strategies. How then, as a facility manager, do you achieve energy efficient strategy? You then do this by coming up with strategies that allows you to reduce your energy use overall per quarter, per year, by annual. For example, what do you need to put in place? There's now what we call smart heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. For example, you can make use of your sensors and AI to optimize heating and cooling, reducing energy waste. For example, in a building, right now, like I indicated earlier, you can put what you call a smart system whereby it senses if there's a person in the room or not. If there's no occupant in the room, it simply switches off all the lighting in that room, thereby reducing the amount of energy that you're currently using. So this is an LED or smart lighting, which you've got what you call motion sensors or daylight switches, whereby if it is a daylight switches, it simply switches off when it is daylight, then switches on when it is night time. So by the moment you do this, you're actually decreasing on your energy use, and thereby you're simply cutting down on your cost as an organization, as a facility manager. Then there's also what we call renewable integration, whereby you can make use of renewable energy rather than using the energy, like for example, from coal or from other sources that are not renewable. So you need to use what you call solar energy. This will help in terms of minimizing or helps you in terms of reducing amount of non-renewable energy to renewable energy, which is a shift that I actually encourage everybody to take into consideration, because not only will it save the cost, but it also preserve in terms of reducing emission to the environment, whereby we're also managing our environment in terms of climate or in terms of greenhouse gas emission. Then the next thing that a facility manager should do, especially at your premises, is to make sure that once a year, at least once a year, you carry what we call an energy audit. This is whereby you actually check in terms of how much you have used and how much you have used in energy, not only in terms of total usage, but you also get to look in terms of what are some of the appliances, what are some of the gadgets that are taking in a lot of energy, so that you can have an appreciation of the energy mix. And by doing so, you can actually come up with strategies that can help you in terms of managing. For example, if you see that most of your energy is being used by maybe your air cons, what you can then do is to make sure that you also prioritize use of what you call a green building. What do you mean by that? It simply means that you are coming up with a building that allows air to flow in. By doing that, you're simply managing the use of air conditioner, thereby also reducing on your energy mix. So in terms of the in environmental social governance, these are some of the things that you can actually implement. Please note that this is not an exhaustive list, but for the sake of this presentation, these are some of the things that a facility manager can actually concentrate on and make sure that their building is efficient. Then the next thing that you can also do is to look at your waste management. Right now, there's what we call a circular economy, which is an economy that allows you to reuse or come up with strategies that helps you to minimize on your waste, minimize on your disposal of waste. You look at what we call maybe a circular procurement, whereby you look at your procurement practices. You need to make sure that as a facility manager, you are in line with also in good books with your procurement manager, so that when they do all the procurement or the vendor selection, you're also encouraging them to look at things that are recyclable, to look at things that are that can be repaired, that can be reused again. Therefore, you then reduce on your waste that you are sending to a disposer or to a landfill or to a land site. Overall, you are reducing on your what? on your emission as an organization. So these are some of the things that a facility manager can look into as you be implementing your environmental strategy. Then going on to the S pillar, which is the social pillar, and facility manager should also look at things such as inclusive design in terms of facility management. Is it accommodative to every employee? Is it accommodative to every stakeholder? This may be your clients, your customer, this can be your neighbors. If they're accessing your facility, does it allow them to come in? For example, if someone is coming in a wheelchair, does your building has ramps on? Is it ergonomically conscious? Is the building ergonomic workspaces in consideration? In terms of your seating arrangement, is it conducive? A very simple example here in Zimbabwe, in terms of seating arrangement, we use what we call factories and worked requirements. So they allows a person to sit on a 4 square meter workspace. Thereby, each side should be 2 meter by 2 meter, which simply means someone should have at least a 4 square meter area in terms of their sitting area. So these are some of the things that the legislation comes into and forth. So as a facility manager, these are some of the things that you then have to look into. That are my clients sitting in a safe area? Is it healthy? Is it safe? You also look at what we call the indoor air quality. The monitoring things, you monitor the indoor air quality, you check safety of equipment, you check in terms of even the emergency preparedness of the facility. In case of emergency, are people able to evacuate safely? Do they have access to the emergency doors? Is it known? Is it written? Is it laid down? So as a facility manager, you're supposed to look at all those things to make sure that your employees, your clients, your tenants are sitting in a conducive workspace. Then the next thing that you also need to look into is what we call employee well-being. Are there spaces for relaxation? Are there safe spaces, especially for women to use, especially during their special times? Is it there? Is it provided? So as a facility manager, you go a step further to check if all those areas have been identified, has also been considered, and are they well maintained, so that at the end of the day, your employees, your client, your stakeholders should feel safe visiting your workplace. They should feel safe getting into a facility. So as a facility manager, you then look at those areas. For example, you also look at things such as lighting condition of a area. Here in Zimbabwe, the minimum lighting conditions of every building are 300 lux. And in terms of the noise levels, they are 80 decibels per 8-hour shift. Long days ago, it used to be factory requirements, but because of evolving of the regulated landscape, all the premises are now supposed to comply to this minimum requirement. So as a facility manager, you have the right to check, you have the right to make sure that a conducive space is provided for your clients, for your community. And one of the key things that I always tell people is to make sure that you do what we call community and stakeholder engagement. Try to make sure that at least once a year you do a stakeholder engagement. Just get feedback from your clients, from your stakeholders, from your employees, just to check in terms of the facility. Are they happy? Are they issues that they are concerned with? Are they an area of what of improvement? This will definitely help in terms of creating a safe workplace, a safe, conducive area for all the employees around. Then in terms of the governance, especially in facility management, you look at your compliance and regulation. Facility managers must align operation with local building codes, environmental laws, and safety standards. Governance ensures that sustainability initiatives are not just voluntary, but met in terms of the legal requirement. Right now, people are very well advanced in terms of use of social media. It's very easy for people to visit your building and and they can simply take a picture and put it on social media. Before you even know it, they'll be talking negative things about your facility, negative things about your area, negative things about how your area is not conducive. So we need to make sure that we also avoid a negativity or bad reputation in terms of facility management, because generally if it goes out into the public domain, it becomes hard, and that reputation can actually damage you for years by simply not make sure that your facility is governed in the nice and safe manner. Then another thing is also the issue of transparent and reporting. You need also to make sure that you report on accurate data that you have collected and disclosure, especially on things such as your energy mix, in terms of your emission, in terms of your workplace practices. Right now, because of the regulatory requirement, most companies, especially those that are under stock exchange, are now being mandated to report in terms of their energy use, their water usage, their waste management practices, and overall their environmental and social governance uh, performance. So, as a facility manager, you then have to kick in to make sure that you are being proactive. You are reducing the amount of energy that you use. You are reducing waste that is being disposed. You are also implementing new strategies to make sure that your facility is viable and is also in touch with reality, and you reduce any cost that you can avoid. Then another key things is that also happens under governance is the issue of risk management. The governance framework helps facility managers to anticipate and to mitigate risk. For example, whether financially, operationally, or reputational. An example is a facility with strong governance will have a clear policies for disaster preparedness and climate resilience. Stakeholder engagement, like I indicated earlier, in terms of governance, ensure that decision consider the interest of employees, of tenants, of investors, of communities. This creates an accountability and prevents short-term profit from outweighing long-term sustainability. So, in terms of matters, why ESG matters in building operations or in facility management, it helps energy consumption by reducing your carbon emission. Buildings account for about 40% of global energy consumption and nearly 30% of greenhouse gas emission. So, as facility managers, we need to make sure that we are a step ahead in reducing our carbon emission to the environment. Facility managers should influence through HVIC systems, which I indicated earlier, in terms of your lighting, in terms of your equipment, in terms of your maintenance, also in terms of upgrading to the smart way of doing business. You need to step ahead. You need to remove lights that take a lot of energy. You need to remove equipment that takes a lot of energy. You need to remove anything that may increase your energy use, anything that can increase your water usage. For example, right now, in terms of using water energy, there are smart tips that you can use that work with sensors. They just only detect when there's hands. They also help in terms of even your watering. They only water when necessary. So these are some of the things that you can actually employ, this that you can actually borrow. These are some of the things that you can actually use and make sure that you use on your resource use. Then facilities that adopt renewables also demonstrate tangible ESG commitments and lower long-term operating costs. Water conservation, waste management, and climate risk and resilience facility management must adapt to climate-related risks such as heat waves, flooding, rising energy costs, ESG-driven strategies. So why this matters for facility managers? This matters because it's cost effective. You reduce your operation cost, you reduce in terms of your money use, you also reduce in terms of your usage of resources, especially those that are not renewable, right? Then in terms of impacts, this will help generally in terms of your health and safety, especially your air quality. This will also help in terms of your employee well-being, your employee satisfaction, your client satisfaction index. Most clients will be happy visiting your facilities. Then this also helps in terms of issues to do with inclusivity and accessibility. Everyone can access your facilities and everybody is included. Then this also helps and promotes in terms of your community engagement, especially in buildings that can serve as hubs for local initiatives. Then in terms of social equity, especially in supply chain, choosing vendors that are sustainable, choosing vendors that are ESG conscious to help you to retain and also attract more investors, more clients, more business, then help you in terms of your profit margin. Then some of the success stories of facilities that have been integrating and also that have been built whilst integrating ESG and sustainable conscious and requirements. We have got a building that is called the Edge in Amsterdam, Netherlands, often called the smartest building in the world. It uses IoT sensors to optimize lighting, heating, and also space utilization achieving exceptional energy efficiency. Then there's another one that also called One Angel Square in Manchester, UK. It is powered by what you call biofilm and designed with advanced insolution. It also reduces carbon emission dramatically while supporting employee well-being. Then here in Africa, we've got what we call an Eastgate building here in Zimbabwe, which uses termite-inspired natural ventilation. It consumes only about 10% of the energy of a conventional building. Then other examples include Gando Primary in Burkina Faso, the ballet inspired by Kigali project in Rwanda. Then last but not least, in Kenya, you've got an eco-friendly housing in Kenya, which is funded by the Green Bond. So you find out that most of the countries are now being conscious and are aware of the requirements. And most of the buildings that are currently being built, they are now being built considering what we call a green building, a building that saves energy, a building that saves water, and a building that has been built with material that is green conscious. So in terms of integration of ESG in facility management, these are some of the key steps that we should all do, that we should all follow, should all employ. So the first thing that you need to do if you haven't started, and I tell you what, right now is the time to start. That is if you haven't started. So how do you do this? It's very simple. First, you need to assess now. You need to check or not. If you're not doing this, do not worry. There's still time to make sure that you can shift from the old ways and become environmental conscious in facility management. So the first stage is to assess your current state, where you are now. It's more like carrying out what you call a baseline study or a gap analysis, just to check if your building is environmental conscious, if you're using smart way of operating that uses less energy, less water, reduce your waste. So that is the first step. Then the next step is to establish goals. You need to make sure that you come up with a strategy. It can be a 5-year strategy, it can be a 3-year strategy, depending in what you want to achieve and also depending on your time frame. So in terms of your strategy, you need to make sure that after coming up with your strategy, you then support your strategy by coming up with policies, coming up with procedures, and coming up with what we call targets and objectives that are aligned to ESG principles and ESG standards. After developing this, you need to what you call a strategy implementing and a sustainable solution. You then start implementing your policies, your procedures, and objectives. Then the next key step is to allocate resources, which is a very, very key issue in terms of integrating ESG. Most of organizations fail at this stage because you want to achieve a high ESG integration, but at the bottom you don't have resources. Resources doesn't necessarily mean financial resources. You also need to have what you call human resources. You need to have a team. You cannot be work in silo. You cannot be an idle. You cannot be an independent person. You need to have people that you're depending on. You need to have a structure. You need to have people that you work with that help you to coordinate. So you need to put up a team that will help you to achieve this. Then the next step is to also do what you call monitoring and evaluation. This can be done quarterly. This can be done biannually. This can be done once a year. For example, you can carry what you call an energy audit. You just need to check in terms of if you have managed to reduce your energy use. You can carry what you call a water usage audit just to check if your strategy is working. If it's not working, then you then do what you call continuous improve. You recheck, you revisit where you're getting out wrong, then you also you correct. Then the last thing is to report. That's why you see that most of the organizations, they are doing what you call annual sustainability reporting, whereby they disclose in terms of their water usage, they disclose in terms of their energy usage, they disclose in terms of their waste, they report even in terms of their social pillars, their governance, if they are meeting their target. If they are not, they disclose. So one thing that I need to tell you in terms of reporting, you need to make sure that you avoid what you call greenwashing. You need to put out what is on the ground. You might not be there yet, but give yourself time so that at the end of the day you achieve it, right? So in terms of some of the benefits, I'm now wrapping up my presentation. In terms of some of the benefits of integrating ESG in terms of facility management, there's what we call regulatory compliance. You achieve regulatory requirements. you achieve zero litigation, you improve your business continuity. Then in terms of environmental benefits, you reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, you reduce your energy consumption, you reduce your water, then you achieve what you call water efficiency. Then in terms of financial operation benefits, you also reduce your low operating cost, you increase your asset value, you also extend asset lifespan. Then in terms of the social issues, you improve your occupational safety and health. You also improve high employee productivity, which will definitely translate into high profits. Then you also increase tenant satisfaction, which means that you have high likelihood that your tenants will likely come again, or they want to be associated with your brand or your facility. Then you also have what you call strong brand reputation, which will also give you a competitive advantage against your competitors or against other uh, clients or organizations. Then in terms of the strategy and reputational, you have what we call increased access to clients, improved preventative and maintenance planning, which is under operational excellence. Then you also reduce in terms of downtime. You also optimize resource and utilization. So the way to get started is to quit talking and begin now. So as facility managers, right now is the time to start if you haven't started, or right now is to engage into higher gear. That is if you have started already. There's no time to stop. So some of the key takeaways is at the end of my presentation, you need to know that as facility manager, ESG in facility management is no longer optional, but it is essential in facility management. As a facility manager, you are not just maintaining buildings, but you are there to drive sustainable and resilience. You need to integrate ESG so that you reduce your cost, you manage risk, and you create long-term value. The future of building operations belongs to those who embrace ESG today. With that in end, I present my conclusion, guys. Thank you. Together we can make a difference. So let's all start integrating ESG into facility management. Thank you. It's now time for question and answers, feedback session. For those who need further clarity, please feel free. I'm all yours
Wow.
now.
Wow, wow, wow. I can see the reactions. I can see the claps. In fact, Mr. Gerald, thank you very much. ESG is no longer optional, but essential in order to create a long-term value. The time to start is now. So it's not just us clapping. I can see people are very, very excited. When I was telling everybody, join, join. Now you can see why I say you should join. And thank you, Mr. Gerald, for that very, very highly insightful training. You just summarized everything within like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and you delivered an excellent training. And another thing I took from this is that you broke it down to in fact, a layman can understand. And now it entails and how we can implement ESG in our operations. Thank you very much. I believe we have questions. I can see Mr. Chinedu was clapping. Namdi, you clapped. Adeyinka, you clapped. Okay, Uduak Udo. Okay, you raised your hand. Let's have your question, Mr. Uduak.
Okay, thank you so much, Aubrey. Gerard, thanks so much too for uh, giving us a thorough explanatory information on ESG. Um, so I'm kind of big with processes, documentations, management view on ESG with respect to business operations. Please, I don't know if you could advise, please, Gerard, or share insights if there is relevant information or documentation when it comes to reporting, audit reporting on ESG for facility management, which would serve as a benchmark, as a process control for compliance when it comes to ESG. I don't know if you've worked with one and if that could be shared so that we'll use that to manage operations on our side to see where we are lacking, where we can make improvement on, and how we could advise management, top management on long-term benefits when it comes to ESG, please.
Sorry, can you just come again in terms of the question? The last part I did not hear you clearly. You said standard or what?
Okay. So I was asking, based on our interactions with management and based on business operations. I don't know if there is a template with ESG reporting when it comes to audits, where there are questionnaires for us to go through and benchmark with our operations on site to see where we are having issues, where we are defaulting, where there are anomalies we could correct, and how that could have benefits, sustainable benefits to management reviews and decision making. So I don't know if there are audit reports that we could, with questionnaires that we could go through and see real-time experience on how we could make our site sustainable when it comes to ESG, please.
Right. Thank you for that question. I've heard you clearly. So, what normally happens in terms of ESG integration and also standards or framework? Currently, there are many standards that are currently being used, but all of them, they are mostly what you call reporting standards. But the good thing about those reporting standards is that they also delve more in terms of your operation. First, you have to perform before you report. So, for example, there's what you call World Bank standards that are in terms of environmental management. I'll share this with you so that you can also go through them. So they look at about 10 key issues that you're supposed to look at, especially in terms of integration. For example, they look at your labor working conditions. They look at things such as your biodiversity. They also look at your stakeholder engagement. They also look at resource use. So you find that by implementing some of these standards, they will definitely help you in terms of meeting some of these legal requirements. Then further to that, you can also borrow from international standards. For example, especially in terms of environmental management, there's what you call ISO standard. I don't know if you've worked with them. They're not only just used in terms of promoting internal processes, but they also help in terms of promoting organizational performance, especially in relation to environmental issues. So further to that, you can also borrow from those international standards. Then further to that, there's also what you call IFC performance standards. Again, I'll share this with you. They also look at, again, its minimum requirements whereby an organization can also can perform, and also some of the things that can also help. So in terms of developing a checklist, it's very simple. Based on those requirements or those standards, you can then have what you call minimum requirements, whereby for example, like I was indicating, that a building, in terms of legal requirement, a building should have 300 lux in terms of your lighting levels. A building in terms of noise level should not exceed 80 decibels. In terms of the sitting area, it should be 4 square meters for each person. So this will then become your baseline standard. So it makes it easier now as a facility manager to make sure that if you have a baseline, it's easy for you to track. You can actually carry internal audits using this as a guideline or using this as a requirement, whereby you can actually look where you are now and where you want to achieve, and you can then improve from there going onwards. Thank you. I hope I answered your question well.
Yeah, you did, Gerald. I really appreciate your response, and yeah, hopefully I get them, and certainly others too will also gain from it. So thank you so much, Gerald.
Thank you, Gerald. Do we have another question? Adeyinka, you can go ahead with your question.
Obi, thank you. Good evening. Gerard, that's been a wonderful lecture. We sincerely appreciate you all the way from Zimbabwe. Well done. Yeah, my takeaway quickly is under the energy efficiency strategies. It is a must for every facility manager to employ, to walk through. That's the way we can reduce the energy in our facility we are managing. But by the way, sometimes in my facility that I'm managing, I made this suggestion to my boss, who I reported to, that we should introduce this smart HVAC by way of sensors, because we found out that our guests, our managed service apartment, we found out that whenever they go out, they leave the AC on. It will be on from morning to evening. And you know what that means. And I quickly suggested that let's introduce this smart sensor. But then he replied me, that's my director, that these people have paid for this. And for the fact that they have paid for the apartment, they have every right to enjoy the service. But to me, I'm not comfortable because people are not inside the apartment. Why should be AC working? It's like wasting money. From your experience, does it mean that it's not good to introduce such system in a service apartment or hotel? What is your observation? What can you say about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Adenika. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So yeah,
Perfect.
that's a real pain issue. That's a really pain point, and thank you for pointing out that issue. So you find out most of the challenge that is associated with that is because people feel entitled, especially if someone is paid their rent or someone is paid their dues. Because someone is paid their rent, they feel like they've got the right to use water in any way. They feel like they've got the right to use energy any way they want. But looking again at the what you call the reputational associated with that, it actually affect reputational organization, like in your case. So one of the things that I've seen working, especially in this situation, is to work with what you call legal team or to work with local legislation or authorities. So as authorities, like in Zimbabwe, we've got a team that we call NASA, and you've got another team from environmental management. So what we do is as ESG team, if we fail or if we fail to meet or to convince management in terms of some of the things that you want to employ, is we'll make use of these team. What they do is that you invite them, then they come on site. Then they carry what we call an audit or inspection. Then after carrying out an audit or inspection, they do what we call an audit report. So the report will come with issues where we are not performing well or issues that are not looking good. For example, like indicating your energy use. So that report will also come with what we call an action plan. So the action plan is a mandatory that the organization should complete, should also do. So what then happens is that if the regulators give an action plan to say that you guys are using a lot of energy or are using a lot of water, may please reduce. So what then happens is that it will then compel you as an organization to come up with mitigation or to come up with strategies that will help you to reduce your energy use, to reduce your water use, to reduce in terms of your waste that you are being generating. So I've seen this working, although it is a last call if you face challenges in implementing some of these strategies, because I know there's always resistance, especially from the management side, especially when you want to come up with new strategies. So if you face resistance, I encourage you to work with the regulators so that you find a way they can visit your site, they can do a report, then make sure that that report is also seen by your management. And if they've seen that they are not performing very well, definitely I tell you what, it will be very easy for you to implement some of these strategies because you've got buy-in from the management now, and you've got also regulators that are watching your operation. So I've seen this working, although it's a harsh way of implementing things, but I've seen this working. So not sure of your setup, but I'm sure if you can try to think around this strategy, it will definitely work out in your favor. I hope I've shared some beneficial information to you, Adenika. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you. I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Gerald. Another thing I would also like to chip in is the fact that there is need for us to driving it in terms of sensitization and creating awareness. Because you talked about a residential place where service apartment people live their AC zone. And I believe the reason why the lead project lead is being resistant is because they've already collected these service charges, and they don't want to, maybe do a kind of reforms. But when you educate the space users or the occupants of the need to ensure that you manage energy, that you reduce energy, I think there will be a buy-in. Before we start going through the regulatory processes or start using the harsh ways or strategies like Mr. Gerard pointed out, there should be proper communication of the need for them to align to those processes. Majority of them might not know, and that's another issue we are having in terms of sustainability. Many people are not keen in because they have not really seen the value. Okay, so by the time you show them or you make them to know the value of inculcating those principles in their operations or in your operation, there will be a buy-in. Honestly, there will be a buy-in. I don't know if we have other questions. Do we have another question? I think I saw someone. Someone put on his video. Miss Chipo, do we have? Okay, Adeyi, can you still raising your hands up? Joseph, okay. Joseph, let's hear from you.
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And Gerard, thank you for the depth knowledge you shared concerning ESG initiative or sustainable practice. But I'm also trying to align to what Adeyinka said, because I felt that if from your response that maybe you need to get a local people to come and do some audit and also recommend for the management. I'm also looking at it in this way because to be able to do that, you also need to get the consent of the management first. If it is something he can bring in a local people to come and do an inspection and also advise on our consumption, which is one. Then two, on my observation, if in a building and an existing building whereby there is no lot, there's no smart system put in place, and you want to like implement that switch of change in terms of sustainability management, managing cost effective, because I've seen it over the years that some of the private or organization don't always like to buy into or key into it because they always look at it that it may also require some kind of expensive. But in a system whereby, like you said, like what Nka said, somebody is not there in the office and the AC is on, which also consuming money. Is there a way whereby we can introduce a system that can also work with an existing system, whereby if there's nobody in the premises or in the section, the light can easily goes off, the AC can also goes off, and when people are there and the environment is looking hot, the AC can also be turned off automatically or manually. So which way do you think this can be implemented that can also work for the management and for the entire system at large? Thank you.
Right, thank you, Joseph, for that question. I think you've asked two questions. So the first one is on cost, which is very true. You will find that most of the buildings that were built many years ago, they were not built instituting what you call smart systems. So therefore to turn that building into a smart building, it's actually quite expensive and very, 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 it's a very long process. So one of the things that we have been doing, especially this side, is trying to educate people. So you find that if you cannot do it automatically, you can also do it manually, or but you find out that it becomes complicated. But how you can simply do it is very simple. For example, let's say you're working in an old building that doesn't have a smart light that needs someone to switch on or off. You then have to introduce a system. It's very simple. How you do it is to come up with a policy to safely say that, let's say people start work at 8 and people finish his work at 5. So what you need is a system to say that if people are going to leave at 5, you need to have someone who's fully responsible to make sure that when everybody leaves at 5, they go through the whole building just to make sure that the lights have been switched off. You can simply task your security officer will be there maybe for night duty just to check if the lights have been switched off. That's a very simple way of managing a old building. Not only that, next thing that have been said is simple, is education. You need to make sure that you train your employees, you train your peers, you train your staff. They need to know the benefits associated with switching off lights. One of the key things that help, especially with management or with everybody, in convincing them to go smart way or in convincing them to use ways that can reduce energy use, is to put value in terms of your wedding. For example, you need to do a calculation just to say that currently here in the month of April, the last month of April, how much have we paid to electricity bill? Then next month, put it upon yourself. Say that next month I'm going to switch off all the lights after the day just to check. Then you do a comparison just to say that when I was in switching off the lights of every building in the month of April, how much did you pay? But in May, I was switching the lights daily. How much have you saved? How much have you not spent on electricity? By simply presenting these figures to your management, at the moment that they see that there's a reduction in terms of the money that has been spent in paying bills, they will simply support you. Because when you talk with management, when you talk with executive, all they see is figures, all they see is money. But if you present to them the cost reduction associated with implementing a smart building or associated with reducing energy use, associated with reducing your water usage, I tell you what, they will definitely support you. But the moment you put a presentation or you talk to them without putting the actual context, without putting the actual money, it becomes difficult to get that buy-in. So what I'd encourage you to do is to make sure that, Joseph, you also put it upon yourself to train your teammates, to train your employees. Then further to that, doing a more like a presentation with a comparative schedule showing the previous or the last month bills. Then you do a later analysis, or when you have started introducing some of these strategies. It might take some time to get that buy-in, but eventually, by the moment you keep on doing it, it will definitely stick and you definitely get that support. I hope I have answered you, Joseph. Thank you.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have another question? I think people are really enjoying all these responses and questions. But Mr. Gerard,
Yeah,
apart from
hello.
smart, Mr. Chinedu, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. Hello, Mr. Chinedu.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah, all right. So two things. Thank you, Gerard, once again. Yeah. So from Adeyinka's question, speaking from experience also and from who we are in this part of the globe, I think people also, listen to something when there is something in it that benefits them. Maybe we can also approach it from this point, or if maybe on the part of the cost, because I know that greater part of the facility management cost goes to power. So and such kind of awareness and discussions, you might also come in from the point, if we're able to succeed in reducing this, then your cost, maybe in terms of maybe the daily pay also can actually come down by so percent. Or if this happens, this is the incentive that comes with it. I think people listen more when they see that there is something for them to benefit from it. So maybe we can also do it or approach it from that point. Now, I just have just one question on what you mentioned earlier. Although that's just a passing comment, right? That had to do with when you talk about the policy on borehole in Zimbabwe, where you said, people might not be allowed, or there are restrictions in terms of, how people drill borehole. Now, the question I'm now going to, I'm asking, or that is in my head is, what is the alternative source of water supply, and how sustainable or how readily available is that alternative water supply? So that's just what I want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chinedu. So to be honest with you, currently things are not looking good. They are not looking good at all. Why? Because besides the bowl, people are relying on city council water. But the unfortunate part is that the municipality water is rarely available. It comes maybe once or twice a week. So you find that most of the buildings, they don't have reliable water. And the other challenge is that if you are maybe occupying a skyscraper, the floors that are at the bottom are those that get water, but the floors that are at the top, maybe from fourth floor going upward, they don't have water because the pressure is very low again. So that's a crisis, and currently people don't have alternative. The other alternative that is there again, but it's quite expensive, is whereby people are now constructing or erecting tanks, water tanks. For example, a company can erect a 10,000 liter tank. Then at the maybe every week you have to hire a bowser to come and pour water into your tank, which is quite expensive and not sustainable. And the other challenge is that it can get easily contaminated in terms of, because of you're carrying water from another container to another container, and there's a chance of contamination, and you might not even know or not be sure because of the water source, and there's high risk of spreading of disease. So currently it's still an issue. We are hoping that maybe soon the government will reverse that legislation, or they will give permits maybe after carrying out a water survey, just to check if the water levels can be supported by drilling bore. But currently things are not looking good, and as people of Zimbabwe, we don't have any alternative. Currently people are exposed, because if you don't have water, you can't survive. So currently things are tight, but it is our hope and prayer that this will not remain as it is. But currently, as it stands, it's a bleak situation. You don't even know the next when next people get water, especially now that the city council water is not reliable and it doesn't come every day. So that's the current setup, Mr. Chinedu. But I'll keep on updating you just to let you know in terms of if there are any changes or any other new solution that have been identified. But as it stands now, things are quite difficult, and we hope maybe soon or anytime soon this will be rectified. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerald. Do we have any other reaction or input or concern? Chipo, I'm still waiting to hear from you.
Yes, especially on the bore water.
Yes.
On the bore water, thank you so much, Gerald, for the presentation. I was just wowed. I think as a facility manager myself, I was just listening in to your presentation, and I just thought that ESG somehow ties in all the main pillars of facilities management, sort of end to end. Because when you were talking about reducing costs, you were talking about risk management, you were talking about the assets, the optimizing the asset life, you were talking about so many things that we do, innovation, technology in facilities management, and how it boosts competitive advantage, how it boosts even worker satisfaction, customer satisfaction, stakeholder satisfaction. I was just wowed. I really appreciate the presentation, and I think I'll have to go over it because there was just so much to take in and digest. And I think the other participants here will agree with me that you really touched on so many critical points that are of importance to facilities managers, as well as I think from a strategic perspective, it really ties a lot of things together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chipo, for that. He's going to give us the slides you are going to share with Mr. Chinedu. And you also promised to share some reporting templates for us, because I think one of the problems or the key issues we have is how to report on the things that we are tracking, the data. But I like the fact that you say that we can document even the most insignificant thing we should document and then use it to convince management that we are doing something. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Chinedu, I think we are still going to be calling Mr. Gerald again. We are going to be inviting Mr. Gerald, Mr. Gerald, inviting him again because I really, really enjoyed this session. Mr. Joseph enjoyed it. Adeika, Uduak, Biyi, Olanre, Aderemi. All of them are affirming to the fact that this is exceptional. So thank you, Mr. Gerald. Mr. Chinedu, I'd like you to give the closing remark and then to tell us when we are going to be gathering for another session. Mr. Chinedu, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you. I've thanked you before. I am thanking you again, and I also thank you again for making our time for this. It's not easy to put slides together, coupled with the activities of the day and every other tight schedules. So we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate you answering us when we called you. There were changes even in the dates, but you were able to adapt to the changes. Thank you very much, Antipo. Thank you very much also for the link. I really appreciate. Gerard is now part of the family, so like Obi said, we can call him anytime because each and every part of this, what is called this presentation thing. Now, when you talk of ESG integration, is a presentation of its own. You get, so there are so many things that we can still dive in more and learn more. So thank you for that. Thank you everyone that has joined. I don't know whether because of our time, many people were also complaining of what's it called, the network. I don't know what I will begin to think of the change in time, but I don't know. Let's see how it goes. But I am happy that we'll see have many of us that joined, and I believe it was not a time wasted. We're not stopping with this. We're also going to also be putting up another session in no distant time from now, and that will also be communicated to every one of us. Thank you for joining. Okay, happy new month. I don't know if I've said that before, and I wish us the best of the new month. We have a platform, and the essence of the platform, to reiterate again, is just for us to be able to relate, for us to be able to hold our hands and get us to better in what we are doing within the facility management industry. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Chipo. Thank you, Obi. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chinedu. Thank
Obi,
you, Mr.
thank
Gerald. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chipo. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.